Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make fried chicken cutlets with pasta and a pesto spinach cream sauce. My kids have been wanting some pasta, so I'm happy to oblige them. So first I've got my pot of water over here boiling, it's simmering it. We're gonna let it boil for about a few more minutes and then we're gonna drop in our noodles. But first I am going to cut my chicken breasts in half, like to make them thinner, and then we will hammer them out. This is important so that when you fry them up, they will get cooked all the way through. And then I'm just gonna, if you have any of this, the little white stuff on there, just chop that off. That is just chicken fat, and we don't need that on our chicken. So I'm just sticking my knife halfway through, pressing on the top, and then just cutting through our chicken breast. That way they will fry up nicely. And I'm gonna cut off some of this fat because that will just be really chewy if you leave it on there. There we go. We'll cut through this guy. And one last one. There we go. I'm gonna put this over here. And then I'm gonna use my mallet, which is just like a meat tenderizer. And I'm just going to pound it out just a few times on each side. This will help flatten it out and it will make it a bit more tender. I'm just gonna pound it out. You don't want to hit too hard because you don't want to smush through. You just kind of want to tenderize it a little bit. If you're using like pork tenderloin, those you can hit a little harder, but with chicken, if you hit too hard, it's gonna smash right through. There we go. And pound it through. Nice pounding. And again, this is gonna make our chicken a bit more tender, as well as a little bit thinner, and so it will cook up nice and evenly when we fry it up. Because that's one thing, is if you have a big, thick chunk of chicken breast and you try to fry it up, it will, you're more likely gonna have it raw in the middle or burnt on the outsides in order for it to cook it through. And nobody wants to eat raw chicken. There we go. And then my last one.
You got a question on those chicken cutlets?
These are boneless, skinless chicken cutlets. You could also use chicken thighs if you wanted to for a dark meat. I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse. Okay. And now that I can see the steam escaping out, I'm gonna drop my pasta into the boiling water. This pasta takes about 13 minutes or so to cook, give or take a minute. And then I'm gonna give it a quick stir, just so none of them stick to the bottom.
You got a question, are you doing them in a certain style tonight?
I'm going to bread them with Italian seasonings, panko breadcrumbs, flour, and we'll fry them up, and then we'll serve them over our spinach pesto cream sauce. Okay, let's make our things. We're gonna first make a seasoned flour. Then after we've dipped all of our chicken breasts in the seasoned flour, we will then add some panko breadcrumbs. So we're just gonna be using some all-purpose flour. I'm gonna put in about 2 cups. 1, too, because you always want more than enough flour, because you don't ever want to run out of flour when you're mixing. Then I'm going to be using some Italian seasoning. This is Mrs. Dash's Italian medley, but it's just an Italian season. And I'm going to use about almost 3 tablespoons. You want a good heaping amount because you want it to be well seasoned. And about 1.5 tablespoons of garlic salt. I'm going to give it a good stir. There we go. Want to make sure you mix all of it up. Okay. Sometimes you want to make sure your spices are all blended around, because this is what's going to be your flour coat and then your crunchy crumb coat at the very end as well. And then I'm going to beat up 3 eggs, because this is after we do our flour coat on our chicken. We will then do an egg coat and then back into the flour with some panko breadcrumbs. I like to use panko breadcrumbs over regular breadcrumbs because they add more of a crunch. They're not as fine. I'm gonna pop each one of my yolks, and then I'm gonna give it a quick blend until they're mixed up. And I'm just kind of beating in a circular motion and while twisting my bowl. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm gonna pop this off so I'm ready for it when I need to. We're gonna first dip all of our cutlets in our flour base. I'm just gonna use one hand for that so I can keep this hand clean for putting in our breadcrumbs. The reason we do a flour coat first is if you were to dip your chicken breasts or your chicken into the egg first, the egg will just run right off. It won't stick to it. And then your breading won't stick. So it's really important to do your flour coat so that you can get that nice crispy crust on the chicken. There we go. Because that's where all the flavor comes in. And that's why you also want to make sure you've seasoned your flour well, so that when it's cooked up, it has nice seasoning to transfer, because we haven't marinated them or anything like that. There we go. And this part isn't as messy. When we get to doing the egg wash into the crumb with the panko seeds, your fingers do kind of get coated in it. So it's always, I always like to try to keep one hand clean. There we go. And flip them. And for those of you who joined late, this is just flour with garlic salt and Italian seasoning. And then when we do the second dip, we're gonna add seasoned panko breadcrumbs. I also always get seasoned panko breadcrumbs over just the plain, because it just has a little bit more flavor. There we go. Perfect. Okay, before we do the dipping, I'm gonna take my clean hand, and we're gonna put in, it's gonna be about 1.5 cups of these panko breadcrumbs, and I'm just gonna mix it up with my hand until they're all mixed in here. And this is gonna give it a nice crunchy flour and breadcrumb mixture, which will add for a really nice crust on our chicken. Perfect. And then also, while we're got my clean hand over here, I'm gonna pour some oil in my frying pan so we can start with that. So I always say, try to keep one hand clean so you can move around, otherwise you're washing your hand on. You want to put enough oil to kind of cover the bottom of your frying pan, but you do not need to have enough to where they're completely submerged. We flip them and cook them halfway through, so just enough to cover the bottom of it. And I'm using olive oil. We're not heating it so high that it's going to smoke or get to a burning point. And I like olive oil is heart healthy, and I like the flavor of it. Okay, now for the messy part. We are going to then dip each cutlet into the egg. Do you see how it's sticking really nice? That's because of the flour. And then we're gonna come back over here and we're gonna cover it and then just kind of do a pat down with our crumb. There we go. I forgot to turn this one on, so I'm gonna turn my skillet on over here to a 7 to start heating it up. And then we will dip into the egg coating, run off any of the extra, and then we're gonna cover it with our mixture of breadcrumbs, seasonings, and flour. If you wanted to use like a gluten-free version, you could use the gluten-free panko with almond flour. It also works really well with almond flour. And I'm gonna dip and coat these up nicely. There we go. And repeat. We are a large family, so we are making more than enough for an army.
And one more time, what are you making right now?
Now we are going to make fried chicken cutlets with pasta, and then we're going to make a spinach basil cream sauce that we can top everything with. So just a yummy pasta dish for tonight, because my kids have been wanting noodles. They love noodles. There we go.
And what's everything that's in the mixture you're adding?
Yes. So this was about 2 cups of flour, about 2.5 tablespoons of Italian seasonings, and 1.5 tablespoons of garlic salt. And then we flour coated everything, and then I added in about 1.5 cups of seasoned panko breadcrumbs.
And first you coat it in flour so that everything sticks?
Yes.
Is that how that works?
Yes, so you coat it in the flour. That way the egg wash or the egg mixture will stick to your chicken cutlets. Otherwise, because chicken cutlets are kind of slimy on themselves and smooth, the egg will just roll right off, and then it will be really hard for your crumb mixture to hold onto your chicken. And then we took our chicken breasts, we cut them in half, and then we use a meat tenderizer to kind of flatten them out a little bit so that they will cook up nice and quick on our in our oil over here. There we go. And I always say you want to make sure your flour mixture is well seasoned, because that is where all of your flavor is coming from. And our egg mixture was just 3 eggs that we beat up with a fork. So just plain eggs that are well beaten. There we go. And then we're gonna do our last one. It looks like we had just the perfect amount of eggs. And I always love it when I have just the right amount. Especially now with eggs, seeing that they cost an arm and a leg, and they're impossible to get.
Yeah, someone just made the comment that eggs is probably the most expensive ingredient tonight.
You know what it probably is? I actually got these chicken cutlets. They were like a steal from Publix. They were only $1.99 a pound, which is the cheapest I've gotten chicken breasts in a very long time. The eggs, on the other hand, were like $6 a dozen. Okay. I'm gonna give my hands a quick wash. There we go. Now, let's see. We wanna make sure our oil is hot. The way I tell if our oil is hot enough is I'm gonna do my water drop test. So I'm gonna get a splash of water and I'm gonna drop it on there, and if it sizzles, it means it's ready. So we got a nice sizzle, and that means we are ready to drop our chicken cutlets in. You never wanna put them in cold oil, because then they'll just be soggy and they won't get a good crisp up. get this little guy right here in the middle. Okay. And then I'm starting, my oil right now is kind of heating up on a 7, which is a medium high. I will cook it, and then once it gets heated up completely, I will turn it down, because you don't want to burn your chicken cutlets in oil that's too hot. So we're gonna start them, and then once I've started to notice that the oil is nice and hot, I'll turn it down. I'm gonna give my little areas a clean up. We got a little sprinkle. There we go.
Bless you.
Thank you. Okay, let me get a second cutting board out. And another knife, because we are going to chop up an onion, and we're gonna get ready to make our spinach basil.
Someone said, Gesundheit. We appreciate it. We speak German, so
Yes.
I like the joke.
Yes. I actually lived in Germany when I was a teen for a little over a year. I had family that lived there. I'm originally Swedish. My mom was from Sweden, but they moved to America, then they moved to Germany, and then they were all over the place. My grandfather was a nuclear physicist. But I spent time there doing a foreign exchange, and so it was a fun time, but I learned to speak the language fairly good during my time. I've lost a lot of it. My grammar's atrocious though, but conversationally I can hold on a pretty decent conversation at times, as long as it doesn't get too crazy with the vocabulary. Okay, I'm gonna pop in a little bit of oil in our pan to get a new bottle. I buy my olive oil in bulk from Costco, because olive oil is also one of those ingredients that are expensive. It's like $30 a bottle. And I've cut them into fairly thin string this way. Now I'm just gonna cut them into, it's not a mince, so it's a little smaller than a dice, but not as small as a mince, just so that we have some nice tender pieces in our pasta sauce, but it's not overly oniony. I'm gonna turn up my oil, and we're gonna let that heat up. I'm gonna check on my chicken now. Here's my tongs.
Yeah, another Kirkland fan.
Yes. Okay. So these aren't quite ready yet. I want them to be a little bit more golden brown, but we're getting close on there.
I got a question. How do you come up with your dinner recipes?
A lot of times with what my kids want, what ingredients I have in the house, and then I think of how to put these flavor profiles together. Well,
because you've been cooking dinners now for what, 24 years?
Yes, for a very long time. I've been cooking since I was like 13 years old. I started cooking family dinners for my family when I was 13. I'm the youngest of 10, although most of them had moved out of the house by then. There we go. I'm just going to give my noodles a nice stir. I can still tell they're pretty firm, so I know they're not near. But this little guy, he looks like he's getting ready. Tongs are great.
You have a question? How long do you boil the pasta for?
This pasta is a thicker one. It's said between 11 and 13 minutes till al dente. Around 11 minutes, I'll pull a noodle out and I'll check on its its doneness and see whether it needs to go in more. So I'm always checking with noodles, because sometimes your water's hotter than if it's just freshly come to a boil versus whether it's been at a boil for a long period of time. And so that can really vary. Also, your pasta type can vary. So I always look at what the recommendation is on the back of the pasta one, and then cook it for that, and then double check.
You got someone on the East Coast asking what time is it for us?
It is 8 o'clock here. So I'm hoping to have dinner ready by 8:30. We're kind of late owls here. because we have a lot. Tonight was a night we didn't actually have a lot of sports, which doesn't happen often here. We had a kind of a break. So a lot of times my kids don't get home from sports until like 7:30, so it's hard. I have a cookie sheet right here. I'm gonna put some paper towels so that I can move my fried chicken cutlets over to the paper towel. And that way they will drain off any excess oil that they have on them. And that way they'll keep their nice crispiness. And your smaller chopped cutlets, so this is a little guy. He's gonna cook up much faster than some of your big ones. Also, if you're like this skillet is a little bit bigger than my burner, so I try to keep them all towards the middle. I'm gonna give my pasta a quick stir. Okay, we've got these flipped. I'm gonna give my onions a quick toss. Their oil's heating up and they're starting to get a little translucent. I want them to have a nice caramelization on them. I'm gonna put in some garlic now.
And why are you cooking up the onions right now?
I'm gonna make this into a spinach basil pesto cream sauce that we will top our pasta with. Now some of my kids will eat their pasta plain with a little bit of butter, and then some will have the sauce on it, so I keep them separate.
And you have a question, do you salt your water before adding pasta or after?
I add, because I'm doing a sauce, I don't salt it in there so that I'm not adding a bunch more salt, because I don't find that it actually changes the flavor of my pasta much. But it can help if you're having a hard time like boiling it or keeping it at a hot temperature. Salted water will boil at a higher temperature than unsalted water, so that can help keep your temperature up nice and hot, especially with some pastas that are really finicky and you don't want them to go mushy. There we go. We've got a nice crisp on that one. I'm going to put in another cutlet. And then I'm going to turn my oil down just a little bit because I don't want my oil to burn. So I'm always, the longer I cook in my oil, I turn it down a little bit every so often because it gets hotter and hotter. And now I'm going to pull out a noodle and I'm going to check it.
You got a question, do you cook big meals every night? Big family, so yes.
Yes.
She's cooking for 7 to 9 people every night.
Yes. I have 5 kids. So there it is with 5 kids and then my husband and I, that's 7 people. And then I cook for my parents too. So that's 9. So most nights I'm cooking for 9 people. Okay, these 2 guys are done. Let's transfer these, and then my noodles are done, so I'm going to flip them out real quick.
You have a question, do your parents live close?
They do. They actually live 3 miles away from where we live, just down the road. Apparently, there's like some study that shows that most people live within like 20 miles of their parents. It's true for us, but I think it just accounts for so much of rural America that probably never leave and they're stuck there. But so far, my brother and I live close by, but the rest of my siblings don't live. Did I turn this off? Not yet. There we go. Okay, I'm going to strain these pasta.
You got a question, what are you cooking tonight?
I am cooking some fried chicken cutlets with a spinach basil cream sauce and some pasta. There we go. That was a big pot of pasta. Okay. Let me get these checked out. I've got them straining in a colander. I realized I needed a bigger colander. I'm going to turn my oil down just a little bit. Perfect. And I kind of am rotating because these are very big and I want them to cook very evenly. And my outer sides of my pot isn't as hot as my inner. So I just want to make sure they cook and crisp up nicely. Okay. Going to get a trivet. And I'm going to put my noodles back in my pot with a little bit of butter so they stay nice and warm. Give them a good shake. Get all the excess water out. And then you can put in a little bit of olive oil or butter, but my kids like butter noodles, so my ones who aren't going to have the sauce are going to have the butter noodles. Okay, we've got some nice browning going on our onions, which means we are ready to add in our spinach. I'm just going to give my pasta over here a quick toss with the butter. The butter will help them stick, will prevent them from sticking. I'm going to put this over here. Let me check my cutlets. I'm going to turn this guy down. See if they are ready to flip. Perfect.
You got a request to make some gravy one of these nights. You made it, I want to say, twice before, so you can go through some of the older videos. But yes, she makes a good gravy.
I do. I said my favorite gravy, of course, is the gravy that I make with turkey when I do at Thanksgiving time. But I do make a good gravy for when I do like a roast, like a chuck roast. And we'll do gravy and mashed potatoes. I think I did that. There might be a video on there, but I'll have to make some gravy another night. I actually do have a chuck roast in the fridge that we can use. So I'm gonna start by putting some of my chopped up spinach into the saute. Spinach, the beauty of it is it's going to really reduce into a small amount. Go. Always have some escapees. There we go. Turn my chicken down just a teens. Chop. You could, if you had, you could leave the noodle or the spinach full if you wanted to. But I find sometimes when it's all wilted down, it gets a bit stringy and a little long, and so I just give it a little coarse chop.
You have a question? Have you ever made homemade egg noodles?
Yes, I have. I actually make a homemade pasta fairly often, and I love it, especially when I make homemade ravioli.
Yeah, you need to make the homemade ravioli.
I'll have to do that. Let's check over here on my cutlets. Crisping up nicely.
You got a question from Florida. How old are you?
I just turned 37 years old, like a week or 2 weeks ago. Okay, I'm going to pour a little bit more olive oil in there just because we're down a little lower. But yes, 5 kids, 37. I have 2 undergraduate degrees, a master's degree, and a doctorate. So I've been busy with kids and school, I feel like my entire life. But somehow I've managed to learn how to cook really well during that time. Also, cooking for your family is much cheaper than going out, so saves a pretty penny there.
You got a question? What we do for work, mostly consultation work.
Yes.
So we kind of make our own hours, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. And it allows me to stay home with my little ones. And when I'm given a good sprinkle of garlic salt onto our...
Got a question, what are your degrees in?
So my undergraduate degrees, I have one in early childhood education and one in special education. My master's degree, which I got from Vanderbilt, is in early childhood special education. So I combine those two. And then my doctorate from Vanderbilt is in educational leadership and policy. So all in education. I really enjoyed being a teacher. I worked at a lab school for a long time with children with disabilities, as well as training masters and undergraduate or students. So teaching is a love of mine, but I also really enjoy cooking. You know, it's funny, when I was actually teaching, I did a lot of cooking activities with my kids in my class. Because cooking is essentially organic chemistry. You have to learn, especially baking, you have to learn which ingredients react with other ingredients. Hence, like baking soda, baking powder, eggs, they all react together to rise in a cake or bread. Okay, we've got our onions and our spinach sauteed up in here. We're going to wait for this one to crisp up nicely. There's like a little pocket in it and doesn't want to crisp up, and then we'll add our lobster in. So for this next part, I'm going to use basil pesto. This is Kirkland brand, so it's the Costco brand. I love it. I also like, Rana's pesto. I do not like Butoni's pesto. I think it tastes, they use a lot of pine nut in it, and it gives it a kind of a gross, like a sulfury taste to it. It has a very strong pine nut taste to it. Let's check on this guy. Okay, he's crisped up.
Yeah, question, do you ever add mushrooms to your spinach and onions?
Yes, I do add a lot of, we actually just had mushrooms last night, so, but yes, a lot of times I'll do like a mushroom cream sauce with pasta, especially if I'm going to do like a braised short ribs. I might make a mushroom cream sauce with that and serve it with like homemade pappardelle noodles. But we had, last night we had pork chops with smothered mushroom and onion cream sauce, so wanted to change it up a little bit different. I'm going to get a spoon now. Okay. Whenever you open up pasta, always give it a good stir, because all the oils and stuff are going to rise to the top. And what we want is the good basil, parmesan, and pine nut at the bottom, and garlic.
You got a question, are you guys live every night?
We try to be live every night. If I'm in town, I do travel for my kids' sports a lot. So whenever we're out of town with them, then of course we won't do a live. But if I'm in town, we do a live, and we try to do a lunchtime or a brunch live, and then a dinner one. Also assuming.
But it's pretty rare you're not cooking a meal any day. So
I know, I'm cooking almost every day. Okay, now we're gonna give about, it's gonna be, I want to say like around 1/3 of a cup of pesto, maybe 1/4 of it, or yeah, 1/3 of a cup. And we're gonna give this a good stir. We've got our thing on low. We're gonna wait to add our cream until the very end, because that can cook off. And if you wanted to add, like make it to be a really bright green thing, just take a little bit of spinach and cream and blend it for a few, for 30 seconds, and then pour it in. That will give you like a really vibrant cream sauce.
You got a question, does someone else take care of the dish cleanup?
You know, my husband, he unloads the dishes, but he's painfully slow loading it. And to me, I'm like, I can get this done in like it doesn't take me long to do the dishes, like 20 minutes. So but I detest unloading the dishes. So he unloads it for me. Also, he doesn't know exactly which things can go in the dishwasher. So like if a utensil has wood on it, it can't go in the dishwasher, or my nice knives. So I'm always like, I'd rather err on the safe side and get them done. Unless of course I'm sick, then he will do them for me. And on my birthday. And on Mother's Day. But he actually will do the kids' bedtime, and he does the kids' homework time with the kids. So, and that's a big help, because then I can focus on...
And the 5,000 projects you come up with.
Oh, yes. And I will say, I have a honey-do list that's like a mile long. I'm like, let's build a loft in my older daughter's room, or our 10-foot dining room table that I had my husband build, and then a loft in our playroom. So, in a new pantry, And our banquet seatings, we got banquet seatings everywhere. This is like one there, and then we have them with our 10-foot dining room table. I gotta say, I have like, for my next problem, we're turning our office into a nice like a library in a Moody Academia style. And I'm having them build me an outdoor kitchen this spring/summer.
Oh, what state do we live in?
We live in Tennessee. So we are just south of Nashville. Okay, now I am gonna turn my heat up just a little bit, and we're gonna add in our cream. And this is gonna be the good base of our sauce. So I'm gonna give a good amount. And there we go. Because this will be able to spoon over our pasta. And we're just gonna let it thicken up. If I was doing like a white wine or a lemon sauce, I would have reserved some of my pasta water for this. But with it just being a cream-based sauce, I don't need to thin it out or thicken it with any of that. It's already thick enough.
That question is your cameraman, your husband? Yes, that's me. And
yes.
Then you have, what do you put in your cream sauce, your mushroom cream sauce?
This sauce, okay, this is my with pesto spinach cream sauce. So we had sauteed onions, minced garlic, and then we added in some chopped up spinach, and then about a fourth of a cup or a third of a cup of pesto, and we let that cook with a little bit of garlic salt, and then we added, it was about a cup of cream, and this is what we're gonna serve over our noodles. And then my kids who don't like it, they're just gonna have buttered noodles, which they absolutely love.
You have a question. Do you make a weekly menu? That is something we have been asking for years. We don't know what we're having until it's on the table.
Because you know what? Sometimes I don't know what we're having until it's on the table. Because, you know, it's cooking is, what do I feel like? What do I want to work on and make? We turn this off. Okay, we've got everything ready. Let me give my noodles over here a good toss, and then I'm gonna serve up how I have dinner tonight. Okay. I'm gonna get a chicken cutlet, because I cut it up to make it bougie. Now for our plating purposes, I'm gonna get a nice scoop of pasta. And we got our cream sauce off. And then this is our spinach basil pesto cream sauce. And then we will place our chicken cutlet over it, and that is dinner. Well, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We do try to do live cooking shows every single day. We typically post the live on our link on our page where you can access it. But again, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to send messages if you have any requests for any recipes, or if you have any cooking questions. We'd love to answer those for you guys as well. Thanks again for joining us.